Welcome to IsitObservable YouTube channel. Today we are a specific live stream. We are not in the studio or in a conference. In fact, yes, we are in a conference. To be honest.
Yeah,
we are at Dynatrace Perform. And in fact, just to show you, I'm going to drop this up live from Dynatrace Perform. Yes, here we are. So my name is Henrik, and I'm the host, and I'm very happy to have you here tonight with you for a live stream of 1 hour. And I have a couple of guests tonight, so it's going to be pretty exciting. I'm going to share the experience with Dynatrace Perform. So the first day, and there's a lot of great things that happens during this first day.
Right.
So first I have two guests with me. So Almu.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
So how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, it's tired. Has been a busy 3 days already and still 1 day to go. So just fully energetic, fully energized, but a bit tired already.
Maybe you can introduce yourself to the community.
So who am I? I'm Almudena, but everyone knows me by Almu. They are there.
They're right there.
Come from Spain. I work for Schwarzgruppe. You will know Schwarz for Lidl, Kaufland, the stores. I've been there for 5 years already as performance engineer. Trying my best, always, pushing forward.
Is the Schwarzgruppe in the Black Forest? The Schwarzwald?
No, not really.
No?
It's a bit to the north.
In Stuttgart?
It's in Stuttgart.
Yeah, right.
And Mark, how are you, Mark?
Hi, I'm great. I'm Mark Tomlinson, and I'm sitting over here. How's it going?
So I think Mark, you've been talking a lot today.
I just learned that there is this thing called an advocate of the year. That's a thing. Like, how long have I've been doing podcasting at Dynatrace Perform? You and I did podcasting, pure performance podcasting. Then we've been doing it as an observable live stream. Exactly what? Hi, everybody. I had no idea there's this thing called Advocate of the Year. So you have to give interviews. You have to give a talk. So I gave a talk on biz events. We did risk management on Grail, so I got one talk done. I got 2 interviews done and a testimonial interview done. So I'm also tired.
So risks on Grail. So what does that mean?
Well, first of all, you know that computer system that your company uses to make what? Billions of dollars a second? What happens if one component of that business system goes down? What happens to the business? Are you get fired?
It depends. It depends on my role, I guess.
True. So if you develop that component, and you could find in the code path, like in the code level, your method caused the entire company to come to a screeching halt. Like, let's say you had an Android application that did some sort of background task and slowly built out, had some sort of an issue in an asynchronous fashion. That would be a real problem. You might be the developer that wrote that. Well, you may not be. It might be an Android person that wrote that crap. It might be Android. It might be Google's fault. So we could sue Google. Anyway, that whole idea is that technical people, we understand technical errors. And sometimes we have a hard time translating technical errors or exceptions, things into something, having a conversation with a business person. Like, what's the business risk? A lot of money in our company, and we have a lot of money that flies back and forth between different places. Like, that's risk. So if we have an outage and there's $1,000 a second going through the system, your money, my money, hotel money, that's a business risk.
But I'm pretty interested because you said you're talking about risks in general with Grail. So it means that you're getting that risk information back in Dynatrace, or how does it work?
Biz events. Biz events for the win, right? I mean, nothing against logs. Grail was sort of born from don't we need to log everything? And logs are great, 100% capture rate on the logs, that's pretty cool. Biz events also give us a different way to correlate the information in a lightweight capture. It's very similar to request attributes, so we love request attributes, but we really wanted longer term retention. Some of our amounts and things, we wanted absolute metrics that were 100% capture, so we wanted that. But we also wanted to be able to segment the data in Grail, different buckets, different permissions, isolate. Like, sometimes that profitability info is super sensitive. So you only want like certain executives or certain people to be able to see that information.
That type of information.
Yeah, so as opposed to just being in general traces somewhere else, we can put them now in Grail in a very secure kind of way.
So Almu, So I guess it's your first perform.
It is.
First time in the States.
So
First time in the United States.
could you maybe share your experience? What did you do so far since you arrived in Vegas?
So, for me, it's a huge event. I don't think I have been in KubeCon in Europe, and it's a huge event as well, but nothing compared to the one in the States. So for me, this is like the biggest event I've ever been to. So just the performance they gave in the main stage, like all this music and stuff and lights, and it's like it's like a huge event for me. So it's been amazing to be here.
It is, and there's almost 3,000 people. I mean, all told, everyone up, it's like almost 3,000 people here.
And all related to Dynatrace. So
they're all performance nerds.
Or
it's great.
I would say all related to observability in general.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine, but really they're performance nerds.
We're performance nerds.
Sorry, it's true.
So yeah, so the two first day in Perform is related to the hot day sessions.
Yep.
Yeah.
So did you do any hot day sessions?
I've been to really two interested ones. I've been lately, for those that know me already, I've been working with OpenTelemetry and Kubernetes like last 2 years almost. And I joined one of the sessions was about Kubernetes and the other one was about OpenTelemetry, all both integrated with Dynatrace. And it was an amazing experience. There was some insights that I didn't get to know, like the collector, the Dynatrace operator, that kind of stuff that you are in your daily basis you don't get to use or you don't get to know or go deep in your knowledge about them, and you get the chance here to stop for 4 hours and learn more about the tool that you're using on a daily basis. So that was pretty cool, and to see that a company like this company like Dynatrace are using or are pushing for OpenTelemetry, for example, or for Kubernetes is something that for me it's like something to be proud of.
Yeah.
And but out of the 3 sessions, I'm sorry guys, I'm trying to promote my sessions. So I guess the best session in a hot day.
The best session of the
Was of course
one.
the Kubernetes and observability
Of
done
course,
by him.
it was.
It was amazing.
Always,
Other
it was
things just were terrible.
It was amazing.
I'm
I
relieved.
just,
So yesterday you were talking about stories and so on, and you already always have awesome stories when you do podcasting. So
what Mark said is not related to no one. It's everything was.
No, you're a .NET shop. It has nothing to do with Android.
So my amazing stories, like I think I have 2 stories lately. One was the outage of one piece of code in Android that the problem is that the rollout system that Android has,
Right.
so that it doesn't allow you to have a full rollback instantly. That you have to wait for your users to do the downloads, the application, the stuff. But for me, the most important one, and I think that is related to OpenTelemetry and observability, is metrics in Kubernetes. Is the amount of metrics that you can have that they can get you to have a problem in your servers, in your pods, and that is something that you want to observe everything. And there's a point that I have to stop. I have to have my metrics should say something. Should be like. Meaningful, and I have to stop to clear everything, because you start by putting everything there. I will use sometime the etcd latency bucket, something, and you have you have a cardinality. The bucket metrics have a cardinality of 8 or something like
so very
each of them.
So very expensive to store.
Yeah. So are you going to use them? No. Then just stop again. Sometimes we always forget to stop. Sometimes and think, and we are engineers. We are not only making; we have to think sometimes.
But as an observative engineer, working on daily basis on figuring out what to ingest, is it not the role of the observative engineer to figure out, okay, this metric is really good, really relevant, but the way it's been designed is too expensive, so I'm going to process it to reduce the footprint.
I have to transform it or to create something else out of it. I have to remove some of the cardinality of the levels of the bucket, for example. I just need I don't know, but whatever the percentile that I need in the bucket, or I don't need this metric because it's duplicated with somewhere else, or they don't make sense, or I'm not using them. So you have to consider what is important for your business, for your infrastructure, for your application, for your software in general, and what makes your quality of life easier when you are going in production and you see the overwhelming amount of metrics that you can get from the different clusters that you can have in production.
So at the end, it almost proves that when you do observability, it's like a product, so it needs to be tested. So you don't enable metrics like this in production without making sure that you not over consume or the storage or the license, whatever with the storage with the backend you use. But it's important to also test it.
It's one of the things that I did like 1 year ago, well, a bit less. Maybe it was a benchmark of which of the stacks that in observability that we were been testing, like a reseller of Grafana, Dynatrace, Grafana Stack, Grafana Cloud, or whatever we were using. Like, how many spans per hour, how many logs, how many traces could we ingest, and as well, how many could we retrieve in a query. That's important because you don't only want to ingest, but you want to be able to exploit that data. And one of the resellers, for example, they didn't have the performance to retrieve all the data that we were ingesting. So
you're referring to pure OpenTelemetry here.
Yeah.
So also something which is important is that you have to control the sampling decisions.
The sampling that is.
So when you mentioned that you were evaluating different products, when you use one agent, the sampling decision is done by the product. It's managed. You don't have to deal with it. But here, how did you figure out the right sampling decisions?
Basically, it depends on the severity.
Yes, severity.
Severity of the product and the SLA. The SLA for us is really important, the SLO. If we have, for example, one of the products like the Christmas campaign that we are selling porks on a daily basis. But
in Romania?
In Romania. But we are not selling like 1 or 1,000 porks per second. We have like 1 pork every. So actually the sampling can be
huge.
Yeah, it can be more light. It can be lighter than one that is a critical, like the logging of the payments that you cannot have a really high sampling because you cannot use a sampling of 5 minutes, for example, because you want to be on time online. But what it does is to increase the cost, and you have to have a balance between the cost that you are, because you are enabling more sampling, and what is the data that you're retrieving, the information that you're retrieving from the data. And that balance is something that I think that you have to test.
Yeah.
That you have to do the benchmark.
Yeah, it's also very tricky because you have to figure out what is the right sampling rate that will allow me to have enough data to understand mainly very exceptions situations and also the average. Because sometimes when you sample too much, you just see the average and you just lost what you're looking for, the errors.
Maybe it's my background as a mathematician, but there's something that you call like the information that the statistical have in the sampling. Yeah. So you can measure that. What is the amount of information I can provide with this population that I'm taking? And it's something that you can have. So it's just a line of...
It's trying to find a needle inside the porks.
That's it.
I do have a question about the porks, which is, there's obviously people, they can purchase a half a pork?
It's half a pork.
It's only ever half a pork?
It's always
Do you ever buy a whole pork and you get both halves of the same pork?
Do you know what I'm going to tell you? Test it.
See, I would test for that, and then if you had trace IDs, you'd have a parent span, which was the whole pork, and then you'd have traces for each.
Well,
so you'd have a span in each of the.
That's one of the funny products. It's not funny. It's half a pork. It cannot be funny.
It's a real.
We have the same product to sell fireworks in Deutschland, in Germany.
Oh, really?
It's the same. It's a click and collect. They buy online the fireworks for Christmas, as I think, like they use
holiday celebration.
Holiday. and they can go to click on to collect them to the store. It's the same product, but it's not.
It's
pork.
not pork.
It's not pork.
You could
It's not
combine-
that funny.
Well, I mean, you could have fireworks in the pork and then blow it up and then.
Just imagine. We'll have to test
That's
that.
a Romanian celebration with
German
fireworks
people, yeah.
and German people.
Yeah.
And then we'll
pork.
almost cook it.
Yeah.
If the right amount of gunpowder in the.
In the
Now
firework.
we're onto something.
Yeah,
That'd be
completely.
good.
We have to test it. It's always do a benchmark.
Yeah.
Run your tests. We can do a stress test on the porks.
To the 2-year contest about observability, one of the things I was in the business events is like, what action will I take based on the statistical sum or the output of my calculation? And you know, the needle in the haystack, and I don't need the needles, I can just see what the haystacks look like, enough to know what action I need to take. So that's where aggregation or your sampling I don't need to get that exact. But the nice thing is that when I do need to get that exact, I have an ID, I can go right to it. But 9 times out of 10, oh look, I see haystacks, I know what process or what
something-
action or reaction I'm going to take.
That's how we use actually Dynatrace. So we have this sampling that it's at minimum, and we see if we see that there's an anomaly, if there's something that we need actually to go look for it, we just enable more sampling. We just increase the sampling. So that's something that we proactively do with Dynatrace. And of course, if there's a campaign like Christmas campaign, Easter,
you turn
Black
it up,
Friday,
proactively turn it up. Yeah, yeah.
proactively it's turned on 20-25%.
That's a good point.
So coming back to Perform, there was this morning there was the keynote that started this morning with Rick. Byrne did some announcements and Steve Stack. So were there any specific announcements that were very relevant for you guys?
For me, the usage of Copilot to enable
No, you can't
the
say
queries.
that.
Okay?
You can't. We're going to be out of a job.
Yeah, you're
Like
right.
they were like, oh, you need someone to write your fancy query in your thing.
cannot
Oh, you need
put
me.
anymore in
They're not going to
your-
need me
you cannot
anymore.
put more in your profile, in your LinkedIn profile, that
I-
you know DQL.
Yeah, oh, then
It's
you're
no
good.
use for it.
Right,
Okay,
but now
yeah,
there's no
we
need, you
don't say that.
Doesn't matter. I was going to have a career for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
So-
And
so
then Copilot showed up.
Maybe to explain it, so Copilot will in Dynatrace you can do some queries to on your logs,
And
on
mostly
your
it's in-
metrics, and you will see spans and traces is also included in
Yeah,
Grail.
it's
in,
amazing.
and right now it's in notebooks only.
It's no, you can start with a notebook
Right.
to just troubleshoot and help you to understand, but then you can from there you can create a dashboard if you want, and
Right,
then
right.
do an automation based on data that you're extracting from
Very
DQL.
cool.
But sometimes a query from an end user could be very difficult to apprehend or to get started, and I think the Copilot is the way for you guys to just type your questions. I want all the logs in error of the last 24 hours on this server, and it will try to regenerate that.
Yeah.
It makes life easier for us. Because if you have different tools, you have PromQL, custom query language, you have DQL, you have everything. It's like, how should I put this in Azure, or how do I put this in? So making this easier, it's easier for us that use it on a daily basis. That I don't remember how to do this in Dynatrace QL, so let me just use Copilot, and then it gives me a tip how to improve it, maybe, or how to start at least. So I think it's a good way to go. Yeah.
To me, on Copilot, one of the most interesting things is that you build a great dashboard and then people love that dashboard, they never change that dashboard. Or you put together a notebook, they love that, don't change it.
Yeah.
And like the staying in business for a lot of people is like, get something that works and then stay the same so we can get that other stuff done. And I don't think that's actually, what I would really love Copilot to do is, I see what you have there, Henrik, that's a good looking query, but did you know that this information is related and there's this new custom device and there's this new external network call? I think I'm going to suggest that you modify that query and here's a new visualization. So I kind of want the background Copilot to kind of study what I'm doing and help me get to the next level. Like I'm looking for
So
like
basically,
the professor Copilot.
Copilot helping you to improve in general.
Improve where you are so you don't get stuck. And oh, you know, you can also pull this query and add this information into an anomaly. Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, I want to do that. So I think that would be the next really cool thing.
The
Yeah.
Okay. And other than that, were there any other announcements that was interesting?
For me, it was really interesting, the one that observability for AI. I work in Asia, so we have this amount of products that allow you to do AI, and they are really. We have this product right now rolling out, and it's in Poland already. It's personalized coupons, personalized discounts.
Yeah.
And I like the importance. So observability, the importance of observe. How much does it cost to me to provide personalized coupons to our users, and which is the revenue that we have.
And crunch it through a model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't have, at the moment we didn't have this way of observe how much does it cost for us, the personalization of things. And I think that this provides us a way of measuring the profit and the revenue, because at the end it's business, okay? But it's a way of observe what is happening in the AI itself. Like,
but it reminds me, because you talk about the cost, that Christoph Renders, I had a chance to do an interview with him. So he's doing a sessions tomorrow about FinOps. So including the cost angle in the picture. And he brought us something very interesting. He said, we need to measure the cost of the environment, but also of my application, so hosting my application, but also consider the revenue of it. So then you can measure, okay, so I'm paying, let's say 100 for my environment.
Yeah, what's my margin?
Yeah, and my application is making thousands. So it's worth it.
Yeah, and then put in the sustainable part of it.
Yeah.
I really love this machine learning model. I've trained it, and now I've applied it. Do I need to retrain it? How much will it cost to retrain it? Was it worth it to chew that much, generate that heat, use that much electricity? I think there's a whole eco angle to observing what are we really paying for the smarts of AI model.
Is it worthy for us to have personalization? Is it worthy for us to have choices? But we give no choices to the future, to our children, because they won't have anything. They won't have porks.
They won't have fireworks.
They won't have fireworks
and we're all
to
for
choose
that.
from. So is it worth it? And I think that maybe we can sell the product with a cost reduction, but just considering the future of the world, of the climate change.
But at the end, if you drive by the cost, you also drive by the energy, because if you reduce the cost itself, you're reducing the energy that comes with it.
Yep.
And just to remind you that today, data center is about 3% of the overall carbon footprint of the global carbon footprint. And because of the AI you mentioned, it's growing to 2% per year. So if you don't stop it, it will end up like being data center or more generating more carbon footprint than airline in general. So it's going to be just insane.
Yeah, we were talking about it last night. Like, somebody can build a bunch of houses, but there's no more power left for the houses. How do you heat them? How do you? Can't use the internet in a house without power.
Yesterday, I think I gave you the example that in Spain we have this drought. I think in South Europe we have 2 years of drought, and there were some companies that wanted to come to Spain, and we are suffering economically like everyone in Europe, inflation-wise. But there was no point, because they were using so much water.
So much water,
that they didn't. The government, luckily or thankfully, they didn't allow those companies to establish in Spain, even though it would have put like 1,000 to 2,000 employees in Spain. That it's really worthy, but it was not. If you have a heavy usage of water, and we are a southern country that we don't have that much water, you cannot put the company there.
Or you can do like Facebook did a few years ago, where you put it, you say that in Spain you don't have snow and ice, but Facebook placed their data center in the north of Sweden. They are getting the energy from the waterfalls automatically, and they are preheating the
cooling,
roads, which is pretty cool. So they should find a way of generating the energy that they need to power their...
We have sun power, a lot of sun power in Spain.
Yeah.
But they need water.
Yeah, of course.
So, and it's something that we lack.
Yeah.
And they wanted to put it in south of Spain. It's like...
desert.
Yeah.
And why did can they put in elsewhere to...
Not really sure, but they were not allowed.
Okay, interesting.
I have to look it up, but I know that Meta was not allowed to go into south of Spain due to the water.
Yeah, it's wild.
Okay, so Almu, thanks for your being
Thanks
here.
for inviting me.
And
I'm so
Thanks for
happy.
coming to the States.
Yay.
Awesome.
So we'll
So I'm
make,
so glad.
we'll make a short break, and we have another guest for the rest of this live stream. So see you in a second. All right, so now after discussing about energy and a lot of interesting topics, now I have the honor to get a really great architect that works at Dynatrace. I had the chance to, a couple of years back, to do an event, and I met him here there. He was talking about profiling. So very excited to get Christophe. So hi Christophe, how are you?
Hi, good, thanks for having me.
Great, so maybe you can introduce yourself to the community.
Yeah, so I'm Christoph. I work as an architect in Dynatrace for 12 years already, so quite some time. And I live in Austria, Linz. That's where the engineering headquarters are.
And what is the, because there's so many things in Dynatrace, the platform is very big. So what are the key features or key topic that you are in charge?
So I work in application observability in general. And the thing that currently excites me the most is that, so we used to do tracing for a long time, distributed tracing, pure path for...
Just pure path. Let's just have a moment of silence for the word pure path. It was very inspirational when you guys
Yes.
created it.
Yes, but in the last decade, the world, especially the open source world, has evolved. And the concept of distributed trace has evolved there as well.
Yeah.
We've been doing it for a long time. Now, the industry in general and open source is doing this well. That's why we also aligned with terminology.
Right.
And right. And what excites me is that we are now using that treasure of the data that we have. It's really good. One agents have been doing instrumentation for distributed tracing for a long time. And we are now basically opening this treasure up by putting it into Grail and allowing DQL to access that data as well.
So query, metrics, logs, and traces in the same query.
In the same query language, and even with possibility to join between them in the same query. Yes.
I did that today. It's very sexy. Cool.
Oh, okay. So
Biz
are there-
events. So the risk-based biz events with like financial information.
Yeah.
Just I've got $10,000 flying through the system, and I've got 40 database exceptions in certain spans in certain areas that affected that money. I can actually join them together and immediately display not just the statistical info, but I can get right to the span and drill down instantly.
Excellent.
And knowing when I'm not just investigating technical problems, I'm actually solving a business problem by doing that. And it brings them right into the same DQL. It's actually really quick.
Or I was thinking, for example, you can query, I will know all the pods that are doing some high-vis plotting,
Sure.
and get the spans related to those pods and see if the response times is unacceptable for them.
Yes, that's exactly possible. And it's really powerful. And also, we are harmonizing the model that we store the traces in, unifying this with the span model that OpenTelemetry uses, that has been introduced also a decade ago through Google DAPA as the original paper that introduced the term span. And we are now evolving and modeling all of our pure path data also in the form of spans. So if you have OpenTelemetry trace data and one-agent trace data, in a mixed way. It's now stored in a unified storage, and you can query it, nicely all over across.
And so out of the so Trace on Grail, that is an excited announcement. And I think today there is another announcement that are indirectly related to the traces. Could you talk about that?
What do you mean, the pipeline?
Open pipeline, yeah.
Open pipeline, yeah. So open pipeline is.
Hey, have you heard about the open pipeline? It's really cool.
I didn't attend the keynote, so I don't know what exactly was shared. You're putting me in a tough spot.
Hey, it's really cool. You should let.
It's basically a new system for ingesting mass data at high volume in a highly scalable way that also lets you do redirections within that flow of data. Can do data masking there, extract metrics right there. And it's a unified system that works for logs, traces in the future, not yet,
Okay.
and metrics, right?
So at the end, I guess if it's embedded in Dynatrace, it means that the configuration aspects is going to be much more easier than configuring a collector, for example.
Right.
And so I know that both of you have a session together, no? Or
Yes.
Do we?
Do we? I'm not sure.
You rehearsed something.
I didn't prepare anything.
I made some funky slides that are really humorous.
Yeah.
But it is specifically, so we've been an early adopter of the Traces on Grail, particularly as a .NET shop with your expertise in the history of .NET in the One Agent. It's actually pretty cool because we're new to Dynatrace. I've known Dynatrace forever and used it all the way back, but I still have a lot of people that are just learning how all this stuff works. So they, in some ways, they're so excited to get an MDA. They're so excited to get request attributes. They're like, oh, look what I can do, and they go off in that direction. Oh, look at a data explorer. I can go over, oh, look at my dashboards. And so we're really excited about all the things before we had Grail, before we had Traces on Grail. So I could take a triage, and I've got 11, 12 different paths to try to find that one trace or collection of traces that are really solving the problem or doing triage. And so one of the things we'll showcase tomorrow is our ability to drive that process very discreetly with DQL using fetch spans. And now I can fetch spans instead of Jim likes to use the screenshots. Almu she loves the MDAs. Henrik, you're always going through a data explorer, and we're sharing links and screenshots and different time frames, and people get lost. Now I can share a notebook with a discrete DQL that's shared, or I can just share the DQL. Because I use this. If you like using dashboards, build a dashboard with a DQL. If you like a different time frame, so it's much more portable, way more efficient. And of course, as people learn DQL, it'll just become more natural. They'll be able to read it and go, oh, I see what you're doing there. And
But yesterday you mentioned that you build a workflow that, based on the problem, generate automatically the notebook so the team can start investigating.
that's the dream, Henrik. I don't know if you know anyone who could maybe help us get there, but that is the dream. I'll say the standard triage collection of data as the incident at the start of an incident. So we can predict something start to get bad. We can trigger a workflow from the problem as the anomaly detection happens. And then here's depending on the entity that we've identified as an anomaly, here's my 5 or 6 standard things I'm going to grab. We know we need some stuff from the load balancer. We know the data source for that entity. We could maybe interrogate a service flow and figure out what other things are related. And I'd like to start a notebook so that we all come together on that same notebook experience and start working to tell the story of what went wrong, how we remediated it, what's the evidence of our remediation, and be able to then save that forever. So we want a incident notebook to be driven automatically out of the process. Having the DQL from the traces to drive that will be critical.
And this would already contain, predefined DQLs, of course.
Certain attributes, and then of course the correlating host statistics or whatever device we were getting.
One thing I wanted to make clear is that writing DQL is extremely, I think, powerful in a way that you can extend and go to advanced use cases or automate something like you just described.
Yeah.
But we don't want to require users to write DQL every day all the time, right? You have an incident, you want to go fast and not, crank out DQL. It's for advanced cases.
Yep.
automations like you just described.
Yeah, it's maybe advanced DQL, but it's like standard template. Like
it's a
I don't
template,
need
right.
to write it every time. It's just
Exactly,
like, but
exactly.
I have like the examples even you get in a note build. Oh yeah, I could take that and then just minor tweaks.
Yes,
As
exactly.
we evolve.
Yeah, but even if you, I talked to it later on with one of the Dynatrace partners, is that they are building application with the App Engine.
Yeah.
And they are basically, when they sell Dynatrace to their customers, this partner, they are building applications. So they are building the right query.
Yeah.
So then the user, like you said, they don't have to build the query. It's been basically, they are shaping the app that they need, so then they can troubleshoot even faster.
Yeah.
And Dynatrace provides a lot of application out of the box, but yeah, it's also a way of saying, oh, I want to have my say business information with my technical information.
Yep.
And if you want to have this visualization, of course, dashboard could be a solution. But if you have React developers, then you can definitely build a new application using DQL as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's exciting to, because I've been playing around. I mean, I love to play around, and I was very excited to see that with a trace, sometimes you have a lot of functional data that comes in the attributes, and then you can start doing some analytics that are not necessarily technical, but more business related.
Absolutely.
Just because you're using spans.
Yes.
So having spans in Grail is very exciting for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and the span, I like to think about it as like structured logging that is in neuralgic points in your application, you know, database call here, HTTP call here, queue interaction there. It's automatic logging that's fully structured. It describes what operation happened,
Yep.
and it has all the context of where the span came from, like the host, the pod, the process, whatever. And additionally, it has the horizontal context because it has a trace ID
Yeah.
that
Right.
allows you to also group in this direction, right? And so it's like logging, but
It's a JSON schema.
yes,
Yeah.
basically like this.
I like it.
And
So yeah, we're giving talk tomorrow at 1:30. 1:30?
Yes.
And it's mostly him doing cool stuff, and then I tell a funny story about how we do stuff. Pretty cool. But yeah, as early adopters, like we're digging it. I think we've given you some feedback here and there, but mostly this was like slam dunk. Really, really works really elegantly.
I'm gonna do live demoing DQL queries. So
Yeah.
So you're gonna, for example, do onboarding queries, or you're gonna
yeah,
show
just-
very complex?
No, I do at the simplest forms of queries that I can, do to just make clear what this is about. Like I do fetch span and show what's in there, and then I do fetch span summarized by certain attributes.
So then
Let's
you
say-
click a graph.
right,
And
and then
leverage all the attributes. That's the cool thing.
Right.
Everything you normally get is there.
you can group by anything, even high cardinality attributes.
Yeah.
Think of a query string that can, have unique IDs, whatever. You can write the DQL that counts the number of requests that have that query or the response time on that, query string. Even though you have millions and billions in your data, you can still do that aggregation and even do a sorting, which means it really has to do with everything. And then sort, and then you can have top 10
Yeah.
out of high cardinality groupings. And it's very powerful.
But there was a use case that I thought could be very powerful, because Dynatrace has introduced the notion of biz events, and in OpenTelemetry you have the span events, and I thought having a workflow that runs and gets only the relevant span events and transform into the biz events, so then you can sort of visualizing like a funnel or something. With the help of Dynatrace, that would be
I'll
an
go
awesome
one
use
more
case.
than that, because we were playing around with the predictive engine, the Davis prediction engine, the forecasting. And so let's say I have an anomalous set of response codes of some kind in the application, and I'm also correlated that to a business event with the dollar sign. So how much money was at risk? That was the thing I presented today. And so I could start saying, given the history over the last 24 hours, adjusted for seasonality, is this getting worse or getting better in terms of the financial risk of these errors, and slicing them by which particular response codes? So leveraging the traces on Grail for span attributes into the predictive engine is really powerful, I think. That's a great use case for that.
So I mentioned the span events and the biz events. How complicated it would be to transform span events into biz events? It's just a JavaScript, I guess.
So for example, what I'm doing is I have a workflow that does regular queries, like once every 24 hours. In my case, it's logs, not spans, but you can put it either way. And it would count, for example, the number of unique users that do something, like that's in the logs. And then I transform this, in this case, into a metric. But you could also do a business event there.
Yeah.
Wouldn't matter, right? It would be exactly the same thing. It's just a few lines of JavaScript code, and it's very easy to do, set up.
Yeah, and you could schedule it, or you could have it kick off, triggered from a problem.
Exactly.
You could trigger it from other anomaly detection. Would be very cool,
Yeah.
right? So you could say, oh, go get this other metric for me.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah.
From a problem, trigger it, then take the
Trigger
entities
it.
that are related with the problem, and then
Get
do
these metrics from those entities
requests.
and send
Yeah.
them back over.
Very powerful.
And
Very
get the ownership and whatever, and send the data to the.
Yeah.
I think, playing around, Amu was talking before about like all these different query languages, and I know there's like some industry work on the standard observability query language. Who knows where that will go? I don't know. But just the ability to take the types. Oh, you have that as a business event? Here, just make it a normal, to go from a log to an event. Well, let's go from a span into a biz event. Like you can move stuff around so easy. So that, to me, that's the most impressive thing I've learned from what we've done together.
You mentioned the working group, the Unified Query Language Working Group.
Right.
So as of now, it's an initiative done by CNCF. At the moment, they are making the inventory of the existing query language. So
Yeah.
it's more, okay, Prometheus is you express your query like this.
Right.
Lightstep has their own language, so express it like this. Dynatrace is also
Yep.
part of the initiative. So at the moment, it's more like an inventory.
Oh, yeah.
And at the moment, the project itself is more looking at they don't want to force all the vendors to change their language.
Right.
It's going to be a disaster
Yeah.
and a long journey for everyone. But it's more like having a component, like a proxy, that will be translating the
An
common
abstraction layer, maybe.
the common query to the query that matches
Gotcha.
to the backend. So I
Yeah,
think Amu made a good point. I mean, if you are using one product and the other, there's always an onboarding journey
Yeah.
to go to the new product, and having that common technology would be amazing, because at the end you can basically use the same query whatever from one product to the other without changing anything. So that would be a fantastic.
Yeah, cool. All right, yeah, I didn't know that. That's pretty awesome.
All right, so first day at
Tomorrow.
Perform.
Tomorrow's like Thursday, day 2. We'll be up. What else are you doing tomorrow? You have another
I
one?
have 2 sessions. I have the one on BigQuery on traces with you.
Yeah.
And then I have a second one where we are introducing the new distributed traces app.
Ah, yes.
We have talked about this
Which is in
already.
preview in some things,
Yeah.
but yeah.
So based on the new trace storage we have on Grail, we are also leveling up the experience you have out of the box in Dynatrace when you look for traces. And that's the new distributed traces app.
So at the end, you completely review the experience of when you have to search or analyze your traces in Dynatrace.
Yes.
Or drill
exactly.
down from an MDA into the distributed traces view you're used to. You go into the new distributed traces, or you can go directly there, depending on how you want to query. But yeah,
So what type of features would that distributed application provide? You will have the automatically all the attributes will be available, and you can filter down, or what do we provide?
Yes, so the main, I think, biggest aspect of the new app is that really any attribute that is on spans can be used for filtering and grouping in that app, right? So you have OpenTelemetry span attributes that come in, or you have one agent request attributes, or you have attributes that describe like Kubernetes, namespace, pod, whatever. Even high cardinality attributes.
Yep.
Any ID you want is automatically searchable.
yeah.
Right? No need to set up an index or configure this. It's all gonna be searchable.
And tags. As long as the tag made it down in there, you can
Yes.
you come up with whatever tagging scheme. A lot of people have built great tagging schemes. You can pull that in as well. And but if you have people that are not super DQL code, you can do this in a really easy GUI. The left nav, this is very standard kind of left nav in the new apps.
Yes.
Easy to use, and it's very fast. Like as a GUI, rendering wise, it's wicked fast.
And I guess that's similar to the new Kubernetes application that is available. I guess if you do a filter, you do a search, then you can probably export it so when you generate your query, you can get the query that is
Yes,
behind
you
the scene.
can. You can
The
always
opening,
look behind the scenes, right? That's a theme for all the new generation of apps we're doing. Is you look behind the curtain, right?
Okay.
Open and then see what's the query that's really behind here, and then again, this is something you can then build upon and say, oh, like I want to customize this, put it on a dashboard that is then persistent. But
Yeah. One of the simplest things that a lot of people haven't even missed or haven't picked up is like, if I have a great dashboard and I see some of my team or maybe even my executives are like, they're always reacting to this one particular tile, and it's very interesting for something that's happening. Like the ability to open it in the notebook and say, let's work on that. And you can save that first thing and not update it. This is what we're started with, and then start working the problem. Like they went from the dashboard right into a more functional way of working and massaging the triage and doing that kind of stuff. But they're still like, that's the same thing I remember from that dashboard. You don't lose them by moving around the application. They still like, oh, I'm on the same thread of thinking. And to me, that's a critical time saving.
And one thing I was wondering was by default when we deal with district traces, we look by many product is doing this, and we used to do it in the previous generation of the product. We look at the response times of the service, the average response of the service, the failure rates of the service, the throughput of the service. Would that application allow me to customize? Let's say I want to have the number of counts of the attributes, order, number of order items that are in the cart, and then I can visualize this as well?
not yet. That's not there yet, but that's on our bucket list to be able to, when you group by a certain attribute, first filter and then group, and then say what metric I want to look at. Like count and response times are standard, but I want to have the sum of revenue, whatever happened, or some custom.
Yeah.
Also support this in the app. That's definitely on the list of things to do. The app is currently in development. It's in preview stage right now.
Okay.
We're still adding features. But it's so powerful that we have the behind-the-scenes system.
That's so cool.
Rail and DQL already enables us to add those features.
So you mentioned it's in preview, so it means that the end users has the options to be part of the early program adapter, or how can they? When would I be able to use it, or can I already be part of the early adapters?
Are there new people still jumping on? We've been on for a while.
There is the possibility to join the preview program that's still ongoing right now. And we are aiming to release, and it goes together with Traces in Grail. Traces in Grail and the app is connected, right?
Yeah.
And we are aiming to release this in May this year.
Okay.
For customers who are on DPS license.
Okay.
In SaaS.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at the end, it's similar to the Kubernetes applications. The requirement is SaaS and DPS.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Definitely check it out. It's an upgrade. It's an upgrade.
It's very
cool.
exciting.
Not I mean that. I mean, it's just a cool upgrade. Like.
And you lose none of the previous functionality
No.
that is in APMs and in Trace Analytics that is there. It's still going to be there. It's just new additional capability.
Yep. All the different views that you can see. Yeah, it's all there. And then, but the ability to go drill down is really.
And because we have the Smartscape that show you the relationship with the different services. Would that be like a way of from a trace to link back to the Smartscape to see the relationship with the services as well?
Similar to the existing way the app works, all of those navigate back to service flow, backtrace, service flow. All of those are still intact. They may still take you to a classic app to do that, but yeah, you're still leveraging the trace data to navigate to those service flows and whatever. I don't think you can go to the Smartscape directly. I think you go through. I think you go through service flow.
Yeah.
You get to service flow, and the service flow can take you into Smartscape.
And because at the end, because it's based on the notion of contextualized data, so if you have a trace, we know that it's attached to a specific entity.
Yeah.
So if there is a problem or if there is something, we can basically see that those traces are related to the problem.
So every span basically has the full vertical stack that it ran on with additional attributes and all the entity IDs, which if you're doing DQL analytics again, you can use that, join the entity in Dynatrace and use all of the information that is on that entity, basically enrich it onto the span and then use it further in your query. Like I've done queries that would take the hardware, like it joins the host that the request was being made at, and from that host I'm taking which CPU does it run on, because we have hardware information in our entity
Right.
model. And I enrich it on the span, and then I say, okay, what's the response time of that request split by the CPU it ran on, because it might be deployed in a way that it runs on different CPUs in Amazon. And I saw slight differences in depending on the CPU it ran on.
Yeah, so if you look in the summary metadata for a trace, you're looking at CPU time, processing time. Okay, that's time from the trace perspective. When you join it to the host, it's like, yeah, it was 90% processing time. Wow, that's huge for that trace. But you're running on a 16-way box, it's like, well, but that host can do that. How many traces per second? Aggregate that. All right, I got a heavy hitter CPU, but it's still only 40% CPU. You can see it so quickly. It's really nice.
Yeah, that's very excited. So I definitely have to try it because I think having the view of the trace is great, but having the analytics on top of the traces is even more exciting for sure.
And the enrichment idea is very cool.
For sure. All right, so I think we are over
the party's happening.
Yeah, the party is happening. So I think we are almost over for today's live stream. Tomorrow we have another live stream at 2:45 p.m. PST time. So don't forget to join us. And that was the day one at Perform. Thanks, Christoph, for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Mark,
Awesome.
for your
Thanks,
time.
Henrik.
And if you enjoyed today's live stream, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. So see you soon for another episode. Bye.
Bye.